Inside Mount Washington Valley Education. This program is developed to provide information on educational programming throughout the Mount Washington Valley. My name is Bob Godomsky. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for SAU 9, and I'll be your host for today. Today's program is going to center around middle-level education in Mount Washington Valley. Joining me today, Joe Vosi, Principal of Bartlett Elementary School, Rob Troon, Principal of K.A. Brett School in Tamworth, and Kevin Richard, Principal of Kennett Middle School in Conway. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me today.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Could you start us off by talking a little bit about, in each of your buildings, you've got different grade configurations. Could you talk a little bit about the grade configurations you have in your school and the physical setup and how that relates to a middle school? Joe, if you could start us off.
Basically, JBS is a preschool through 8th grade, and so our preschool is really a community preschool, but they're housed in the building and they play with us and they're involved in going to the gym and everything. After that, I mean, it's really two full-day Ks, and then looping teams. So we have 2, 3, 4 looping teams, 2, 5, 6 looping teams. And then the middle school, which some people would say 5 through 8 is the middle school. We've kind of said, when we talk about middle school, 7th and 8th grade, is a 6-member team covering all the academic areas and a special educator. And they keep kids for 2 years. So that's kind of the organization of the school, and 7th and 8th graders. One team keeping kids for 2 years. So that's, I could go into that. Watch scheduling and all that stuff.
And we will.
Yeah, we will.
We're a K through 8 school, and so it's similar to how Bartlett's set up. But this year we made a lot of transitions in the school, and the middle school now, we've gotten closer to the true middle school model. We now have 6th grade involved in our middle school, and we have 4 core teachers of math, science, social studies, and language arts, 3 grades, and then a full-time special ed person in the middle school as well.
And Kennett Middle School?
Sure. Well, up until about 8 years ago, it was a 7 through 12 building, about 1,400 kids, and the folks in Conway decided to build a brand new high school in the valley and renovate the existing facility. And currently we have grades 7 and 8, and we have about 310 kids, and we get kids from 5 different elementary schools. We take in the kids from Madison and Freedom, as well as the 3 Conway schools. It's a beautiful facility. We have truly made it a middle school over that time. We have 4 teams currently with 5 academic teachers assigned to each team. So 2 in 7th grade, 2 in 8th grade, and we're just very happy with the facility, modern, up-to-date with technology, you name it, and we have it. So we have them for 2 years, so it is a lot of transitioning in, and then we get them ready to head up to the high school.
Now, middle school students, let's say 7th and 8th grade students only, middle school students, what's special about them socially and developmentally? Could you talk a little bit about what the difference is from an elementary age student and a high school student, socially and developmentally, what's different for middle school students?
Well, as I tell the parents in the kids, it's 2 wonderful, magical years. More change takes place 12 to 14 years old than probably any other age. You're talking about physical development, so these kids might grow 3-4 inches over the period of 2 years. And it doesn't happen in a linear fashion. These kids some might not grow for a year, and then all of a sudden they grow over the course of the summer. So they come in really as elementary school kids in 7th grade, and they kind of feel their way around, and by the time they leave in 8th grade, they're thinking more independently. Emotionally, they've changed a lot. There's up and down every single day. Socially, they've started to develop new friendships with people with like interests, and then academically, you see huge changes in the kids going from that compliant education, if you will, where it's all concrete, to really working the abstract. So we try to provide as many opportunities for that type of growth with those kids.
Now, what do you find in elementary schools? You've got a K-8 school, both of you. And when you talk about socially and developmentally, what do you see is a positive of having a K-8 school with your middle school students? Rob, can you start us off?
Sure. One of the real benefits we have is with our buddy program, we have older grade levels partnered up with younger grade levels, and it really gives the middle school students the opportunity to be the leaders of the school. And, we've got them for 9 years, and talk about development and growth that you see over that 9-year time. It's really incredible to see.
Yeah, not only the buddy system and the leadership piece, but it really keeps parents involved. I was a principal of a 6 through 8, 800-student body school, and I really think that the K-8 organizational arrangement really keeps parents involved over a long period of time. So you get them, some of them in preschool as parents, you build those relationships and they stay with you. So that really, that whole idea of being collaborative, cooperative with parents, really, I think, it really keeps that going all the way through. So those parent-teacher conversations are going on all the time. They don't have to travel to a middle school. They're right there at the same school. They have a comfort about that school. So, leadership and I think, keeping parents involved, keeping them in the loop. But I was just going to go back to what you were saying. That whole idea of, you've heard the expression, the light bulb just went on.
Yeah.
I mean, growth spurts that are going on with those kids. And I kind of I like the emotion. I was a 7th grade teacher for 9 years. Those 7th graders, the socks don't match. They really don't take showers. The hair's a mess. And they think girls are still a second baseman, you know what I mean? And you watch them grow through that period of really kind of not understanding, being more concerned about how they're perceived than really looking inward and that whole idea. And then becoming, going from concrete to abstract, that whole different way of thinking and evolving. I mean, that whole thing.
And I think you all really hit on the point. I mean, it is the middle years. It's a transition in their childhood out of the elementary mindset and model and eventually into the high school. They really become young adults in high school. It truly is the middle years of their development. It's a really great time to be involved in their lives.
So with that in mind, speak a little bit about the academic portion of that. What is it like for a middle school child academically? What's special about middle school academics?
In Tamworth, it's a small setting, so they have this core group of people, and for 3 years they work with this core group of people, these same 4 people. It's a 3-year loop, if you will, and the academics themselves, is probably not the key, but the relationships they get to build with those teachers over time is probably the key there of, you don't have to start every year over with, hello, welcome to my class. It's,
right.
All right, let's carry on.
Right. Sure.
I think it does become more rigorous. I think that, middle school teachers especially, and I like the idea of the looping piece because, they're teaching the 7th and 8th grade curriculum, integrating it, but also understanding what those expectations are at the secondary level. So they know that they're taking those, 5th and 6th graders, or everybody else, but they know when they come in as 7th graders, they have a job to do to be really rigorous and really begin to prepare them to be successful at high school. And that's a different ball game than a 5th and 6th grade teacher. They have that piece. So,
I'm sorry, I was just going to say, and you really get into, it's the first time in a lot of cases that they get the expert in the field teaching the subject, which is, and I taught middle school for 11 years myself, and that was something I really had a lot of pride in, was being the expert in the field, and for the first time in a lot of cases, being able to bring that knowledge to that level of instruction. Sorry to cut you off.
Well, no, I think the connection to the learning is so important at this age. I think as they go through K through 6, they learn because the teacher in the front of the room has said this is important, and now they start to begin questioning, well, how does this apply to me in my world? Because 12 to 14, their world is right in front of them, whether it's their friends, whether it's emotionally. So now they begin to to really say, how does this apply to me? How does civil rights apply to me in my world? And I think the teachers in middle school level really do a good job of presenting background information to the kids, getting them to understand, having them be empathetic to their learning, and then try to demonstrate their learning in a variety of different ways. I think that's a huge part of middle school.
Sure. Now, a few weeks ago, I did a show with the principal of high school in Neil Moreland, and we talked a little bit about the 9th grade house. And he described some teaming, 2 different teams, and really getting to know the kids. Could you speak a little bit about teaming at the middle school, and why is that important?
You know, and that's an important concept because that whole thing. So you look at the middle school movement and, you know, transitioning from the junior high to a middle school that is really responsive to the needs of those, you know, adolescents, transessents, whatever you want to call them. It's kind of interesting to look at, you know, the whole idea of high schools transforming into a different type of institution basically has come from the middle school movement. So you see high schools all over the country implementing middle school models, advisor-advisee, teams, where you can really have a group of people concentrating on kids and the whole child, not just biology separated from math. We're talking about how does everything fit for this one child or this team of kids, that whole idea of, you know, teams becoming teams. So, you know, PLCs came from common planning time in middle schools, you know, planning around how are we going to assess, what are we going to teach. So it's kind of interesting to watch that, you know, that whole idea of junior highs and then middle school. I think it was a pretty important movement in education in the last 20 years, and now those same principles are being adopted in high schools. Not only freshman teams, but a lot of high schools have sophomore teams now, and they're really beginning to team them up and have common planning time and talking about assessment, etc. So I kind of think that middle schools and those of us who have been involved in that movement have had a great deal of you know, influence in high schools transitioning and transforming. So I think that's a pretty nice thing. So
is it different at a K-8 school having teaming than it would be perhaps in a 7-8 middle school?
I really don't think so. The advantage, though, in a small school like ours is the 3-year loop piece, but you still have the same type of things. Like Joe was saying, you look at the whole child, which is so important, and you also you know, you get to share the knowledge that you have, whether it be academic, whether it be emotional, social, the whole child, and sharing that knowledge with a core group of people that really get to wrap around this kid or all of these kids and focus on what's best for them.
Yep.
Okay, so what does teaming look like at County Middle School?
Well, similar. I think the big thing about the teams is the accountability. I mean, you as a part of 4 other teachers, you sit around the table and ultimately you have conversations about kids. You have that built-in common planning time. So you do it for instructional pieces, or you do it to really talk about all the areas that we talked about academically. Okay, we are going to be doing a civil rights unit in social studies. That's our theme. Well, how can I complement that with language arts? So maybe we study just, again, to make that connection with the kids in their world. They really get immersed into it. You know, socially, hey, if there's an issue that needs to be addressed, it doesn't happen just in my classroom. You know, in middle school, you're constantly teaching. It might be how to behave appropriately in the cafeteria or how to behave appropriately in the hallway, but I think it's those bigger pieces that there's a collective front. So that respectful behavior in Mr. Posey's class is the same as respectable behavior in Mr. Troon. We're all talking the same language, and the kids hear that. And it also makes it easier, I think, for parents and for kids to build that trusting relationship with the school. So if there's an issue, they can go to the team leader or one of the members of the team, and the communication goes out to everybody so that they're aware of what's going on.
That's a real good point, being able to reach out for a parent, being able to reach out to a team of people and not just a random person here and a random person there. Absolutely.
So I keep hearing a theme of getting to know the whole child, not just in the classroom, but everything about them.
Right.
Could you speak a little bit to advisory programs or other programs where we lower are the numbers of students that adults really can bond with and get to know?
And that has been and there's no magic program out there. It's all about building that relationship with the kids. So what you try to do is either through the homeroom, the advisory period, we do it a few different ways, that I own 5 or 6 kids, 8 kids, however we can. We use whatever staff members we can, paraprofessionals, you name it. I have a group, my guidance counselor, everybody has a group, and you take ownership over those kids. So a lot of time, middle school, kids want to do well, not just because they want to learn, which is a good thing, but also because I want to work hard for Mr. Voci. I want to work hard for whoever it happens to be. So again, building that relationship with an individual to talk about all aspects of their development, and that's what makes middle schools, hopefully, developmentally appropriate schools. And I think just keeping those numbers reasonable, because it's hard to do in the old days. You know, I taught in high school, 22 kids in your homeroom. It's really hard to meet with those kids. So you build in those times. Every Monday we have a block of about 20 minutes where the team meets with all the kids on their team, and they go over, and all the teachers talk about whatever issues happen to be going on, whether it's a community service piece, whether it's field trips coming up, whether there are issues in school, whether it's language that people are using. And again, I think it's that ownership of the connection with the kids.
So it's really a safety net for kids for everything they do when they come in the building. How about at a K-8 setting with advisories?
I think the advisor-advisee program is the most important program that middle schools and even high schools should have. It's transformational. I mean, you read any type of literature about transforming a school. They'll say it. What are the things? A couple of things that we know for a fact work: block scheduling, advisor-advisee, courageous leadership. But that's where it starts with. So that whole idea of every child knowing that they have one significant adult that cares about them is huge, huge. And so that starts with that small group, with that that significant adult who's an advocate and who's a mentor. What it does is it takes a large group, and we don't have a huge group, but he's got a bigger group. But it takes a large group, makes it smaller, and so our parents know that if their child's having a problem in whatever, well, it's the advisor that sets up the meeting. You don't have to go to 6 different teachers because they have 6 different teachers. That's the person. That's the person who will attend the meeting. That's the person who sets it up. That's the person who sits in a large group common planning time and says, how are my kids doing? Well, Joe Voci's, not doing his homework and screwing up. I'll deal with that. The other teachers really, look to that advisor to take that lead. One of the things that they do is twice a year we have student-led portfolio conferences with parents. The advisor sits in, not all those teachers, just the advisor with that student. That is critical. I mean, that significant adult in that child's life, so that you have people who know the whole child. They know exactly, and they can advocate for them. I'll tell you the story. I've got a cup of coffee. I'm walking down the hall. There's a parent going to see his son with an egg sandwich and a cup of coffee. So walking down, and she says to me, I should say, isn't my child doing better this year? I said, you're awesome. Unbelievable turnaround. So we take the left and we're going to the student's advisory. And I said, don't say anything to me. That person in there, that's the person who took the lead, who went upstairs to a big team and really, advocated for your child and put the things in place, which was a little bit of tough love. And you know what? And look at that. So I said, you need to walk into that room and say thank you very much, because that's the person who did all the good work. And the other thing is, when I talk to parents, there's no opt-out. So we have our kids go in for 2 years. It's like a marriage. If it's not working, you got to find ways to work it out between the child and the adult, not with the parent involved. But if your child's coming home saying, I hate my advisor, remember what I'm going to tell you right now. The advisor's doing their job, because they're on their butt around homework, behavior, whatever it is, but they're on them, not in a disrespectful way, but in really kind of sometimes a hard love way. And so just that, that is, for me, that's the foundation. You want to build a middle school, build it. There's the foundation. You got to have people who really believe in that and want to.
A lot of times a safety net is holding kids and pushing them at the same time.
Right.
Well, I think on a bit of a larger scale, it's not just the connection that you make with the teacher that is as your advisor, but in your advisor-advisee group, those other advisee kids, you really build a bond with them. And, in a larger setting than we have currently, a lot of times you see that really develop into a safety net. In class, when we've got however many kids, things happen the way they do. But boy, when we're together in our advisory, we know we can lean on each other. And that's a real valuable piece. And I think one of the other things that we focus on in our advisory is the self-advocacy. Having students build the ability to stand up for themselves, to speak up for themselves, and apply themselves. And ours, I think our advisory program is a little bit different in that because of the model we now have as a 6th through 8 middle school, our advisories are multi-age. They're 6th graders, 7th graders, and 8th graders, and the 8th graders will filter out, and next year 6th graders will filter in to the group. So we really, like you have a looping team where the kids get bonds with teachers, the kids are getting this lengthy bond with themselves as well. Real great program, I agree.
And I think you guys both hit on something that is hard for parents, and that's that kids are going to stumble, and that's okay. And I think as a middle school, you provide the opportunity for kids to stumble, scuff their knees, but to get back up and be resilient, because I think a lot of time for the first time, they're bumping up against maybe they were all A, all B student, and now there are other things in their lives that are getting in the way. And I think that's a trusting relationship that the parents have to understand too, is, hey, it's okay, your child may get a C or even a D, but how do they respond to those situations? Or their friendships, maybe they need to work a little bit harder. And that's where the advisor comes in and kind of boosts them up by gaining some independence.
And kids are more likely to stretch and grow and try new things, knowing that they have the safety net behind them. Absolutely.
And they get to play, because I'm going to tell you a little story. They play together. They have competitions. They do this together. Some advisors have advisory lunches together. Well, the other morning, Friday morning, I heard this huge commotion outside of my office. It's big. Well, the first thing I heard was a teacher say, Mr. Yana, could you come to the office? So Mr. Yana's walking downstairs. So then I hear this huge commotion. I go watching out. And so Fisher's advisory was kidnapping Mr. Yana.
Yeah.
So they're chasing Mr. Yana down the hallway to kidnap Mr. Yana. That's advisories playing against each other and with each other that kind of, keeps it kind of loose and fun for those kids, and at the same, and adults playing with kids.
Sure.
That's the fun part of it. That's the whole thing.
And some days are more geared toward a specific social lesson, and other days are more geared toward, let's just build common experiences together and enjoy each other's company.
Yeah, there you go.
So there are a lot of up and downs when kids are transitioning through these 7th and 8th grade years. A lot of changes going on. Let's change it a little bit and look at parents. What suggestions do you have for parents to be involved in their child's education and the entire growth process? It's a tough time to be a parent. Rob, what can parents do to help their kids out?
Definitely keep communication up with the teachers in whatever best way they can. If it's through their daily agenda, where they write down their assignments, or the occasional phone call. A lot of people have email these days. Just keeping those lines of communication open and understanding that we're working toward the best for your child, just like you want the best for your child, and just understanding that they're just part of a team. The parents are part of that same team.
What would you like to see out of parents?
I always tell parents at open house, and it's not just parents, I think it's all community members when they're dealing with 12 to 14-year-olds. 3 Ps. Be positive, be positive, be positive. Be persistent. Be persistent in telling them that you love them under whatever conditions that there are, and then be patient. And I think those 3 things, if you're positive, you're the role model, okay, that's extremely important. Be persistent and don't take things personally, because you know what? Their day changes from every minute that they might love you one second, they might hate you the next, but they're going to forgive you and they're going to move on. And then, like I said, just be patient and continue the mantra, and they need to hear it over and over again. So those are the 3 things I typically will tell parents and teachers when they're working with kids. And we all need to be reminded of it. That's important.
What pointers could you give parents?
I think that communication piece, spending time with the child. I can remember one time I was in 8th grade shopping for my 8th grade, we used to call it graduation suit. I'll never forget it. We were going to Filene's, we were at Boston Common, and my mother reached out to hold my hand, and I didn't want to hold my mother's hand. I think back to it now, and I say, my God, I wish I had reached out and held my mother's hand. So it's kind of that, allowing your child to break away, become their own, and really, understanding and supporting that. It's the whole homework thing. At some point, they have to begin to let go and let their child kind of experiment with those things, allowing them, to fall behind on their homework and not getting, so upset that it gets involved in the relationship with it. But there is that's a hard thing to do, that whole idea of letting go and that whole idea of still staying involved and communicating. But stay involved, know who your child is, know who your child's friends are, and, basically, I think, be a collaborative team member, like you said, with those teachers. Everyone's out to make sure that every single child finds success and work with us, become part of our team, and I think that's going to do everything.
Now, we've only got a couple of minutes left, and I want to give each of you a chance. Can you pick maybe one thing in your school that you're just extremely proud of? We've got so many wonderful things happening in all of our schools. 3 very unique schools here. What's one program that comes to mind that you're just really proud of?
Well, I talk about it. It's our RED program, Read Every Day program, and the whole school shuts down. And it's, one of the things that we talked about was building a culture of literacy within the school. And we said, hey, look, reading is important. And my teacher said, some of these kids come from homes that maybe they weren't provided books, maybe they weren't read to, but we can change that from the hours of 7 to 3. So for 20 minutes a day, we just shut down the school. I have a small reading group. Other people have small reading groups. We read aloud, but they can read whatever they choose to. And, they have cranked up to the point where the average student reads over 20 books a day. A year, which is tremendous. But it's a true celebration. We have book parties and give book giveaways. So that's something that we're real proud of. It came from within the staff. They developed it, they've tweaked it, and it's just a real feather in their cap.
Terrific. Thanks. Rob?
Well, it's kind of a two-part answer, I guess, but we talked a lot about advisory, and that would be part one. But the other piece is just our commitment to the whole child, whether it be their involvement in composting and recycling, or their involvement in the younger students in the school, or their involvement in the community, working soup kitchens and collecting canned goods and things like that. I'm so glad that we have the ability to still focus on the whole child and not narrow it down to just, these are the 4 core academics and that's all you can do. Sure. I'm glad we still have the opportunity to look at the whole child and let them develop into productive members of society.
Terrific. Joe?
I think it's, advisory, the Little Buddy program, that's awesome. But I think what it comes down to in a K-8 for me, and I think you mentioned that too, is, identifying those 8th graders as the leaders of the building, and there's the expectation. So the full first opening assembly, our 8th graders walk in hand to hand with their little buddies into the assembly. We do some different stuff. But then I line up. This year I lined up 58 8th graders, read their name, lined them up, facing the community, facing the children, and let them know, you're the leaders. Here's the expectation. You are expected to take care of those little ones. I don't care if you're on the bus, on the playground, whatever. You are the leaders. Here are the school rules. We expect you. This isn't anything I'm asking you to buy into. You got it, whether you want it or not. You got it. Here are the rules. This is what we expect you to look like when you're walking down the hall or you're studying or whatever you're doing. That's the bottom line. That's it. You got that. So that whole idea of lining them up, and then at the end of the year when we celebrate the 8th graders going, I introduce the 7th graders who all stand, and we give them a standing ovation as the new leaders of the building. And that's the expectation. When they walk into my office, and I'm going to tell you right now, I see very few 8th graders during the year. And I do believe that that's because of that expectation. You're the leader. We expect it. When they walk into my office, I'll say, what grade are you in? 8th grade. Didn't I stand you up in front of the school as the leader? What are you doing here? That doesn't make any, no, that's not it. So I really think that's huge, that's key. And that whole little buddy, that whole expectation. You're the leaders, lead us. And because, here's a simple fact. When you really get down to it, they outnumber us. They outnumber us. So
It certainly is a time that a lot of confusion for kids, and certainly they all need our help. Unfortunately, we're running out of time.
we might get to talk about our transition activities, our time we get together.
We have way
around
too many things to talk about.
Save that for part two.
So I'd like to thank Joe, Rob,
Pleasure.
Kevin, thank you very much, and I hope you join us next time on Inside Mount Washington Valley Education.